when it comes to South Africa's betting and gaming industry. National Treasury is proposing a 20% tax on betting operators in response to the rapid growth of online gambling in South Africa. But the South African Bookmakers Association warning that any proposal could push the industry's total effective tax burden to about 39% once existing VAT and provincial gambling taxes are also included. Joining me now is Sean Coleman, CEO of the SA Bookmakers Association. Good morning, Sean. Really appreciate your time. Initial thoughts when Treasury talks about a 20% betting tax? Why do you say the real burden on bookmakers could climb to as much as 40%?
Good morning, Lester. Thanks for having me. So as we set out in our submission to DTR, the biggest concern we have is that they've been short-sighted with regards to the fact that gambling in South Africa is a vatable commodity. And so when I have a bet with a bookmaker for 100 Rand, it's deemed to include 15% VAT. And so what we're saying is currently operators in South Africa pay to the provincial gambling boards, which goes to provincial budgets and down to local municipalities. They pay 6.5% already at taxation on their gross gaming revenue, which is like a bookmaker's gross profit. And what we're saying is then, with 15% VAT on that, once a bookmaker generally has taken off all his expenses, the net VAT amount that's paid to national government is probably around 12%. And so when you add the 12 and the 6.5, you're at 18.5. And then national government now wants to overlay that with an additional 20%. So we very quickly get up to 38.5 or 39%. And that's one of the concerns for us, because we would be a jurisdiction with the highest tax rate on gambling in the world.
In your submissions, you also argue that this would be a final nail in the coffin for some operators. How could that be the case when the advertising, the marketing of gambling and gaming is omnipresent at the moment? It seems and it looks like the gambling industry is making a rip-roaring trade, and what many would argue to the detriment of many South African households.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we have small, medium, and large operators. And so where you see the advertising and the marketing machines of the bigger operators out there, it's not necessarily those that we refer to. So, I mean, we represent everybody from single independent bookmakers to some of the bigger corporate bookmakers in the industry. And so that reference is with specific reference to, the medium or smaller guys. They also have some online sites. And they're not the ones where you see the marketing machines rolling, and those are the ones where we express that concern.
I'm fascinated on where we're going when it comes to the formal regulation or the tighter regulation on the betting and gambling market. As you mentioned, the licensing fees from gambling is controlled by provincial governments. It's one of the few ways in which provinces actually get a revenue. One is from vehicle licensing, the other is from betting and gambling licensing. If National Treasury and National Department says, well, we want to take our chomp from this industry, do you foresee any type of conflict between a national government and a provincial government who would say, well, this is actually overreach from National Treasury? Because provincially, constitutionally, it's provinces who get to determine the fees for gambling operations.
Absolutely, and that's something we do bring out in our submission. Gambling in South Africa is a concurrent competence, which means that there is the National Gambling Board, and each province has a gambling board. So you have 9 provincial boards, and therein lies the tax statutes and the licensing fees as a provincial competence. National Gambling Board doesn't license. They have an oversight role for policy certainty and for hopefully getting national norms and standards across the country, which is something that we're battling with as the National Gambling Board has been in disarray for quite some time. Even the National Policy Council has been in disarray for quite some time, although the ministers recently appointed people. So there is going to be conflict. I know I don't want to speak for them. They can speak for themselves, but I know that the provinces are also not happy about this. because of the tax overlay and the stress and the pressure that it is going to put on the industry. You can't also make comments about we're doing this to assist problem gamblers and those types of things when you're targeting the operator for a taxation. How do you envisage that taxing an operator an additional 20% is going to stop you and I from going to gamble, on a website? It just doesn't make sense.
And what Treasury would argue, well, that money, that taxation, could go to helping with rehabilitation, could be helping to go awareness. But as we know, we have very, very few taxes that are in fact ring fenced in South Africa. As far as I know, we only have the road accident fund levy when you buy petrol. That actually goes to the road accident fund. All other taxes, whether it be a tax on plastic bags, whether it is a general road levy, whether it comes to the sugar tax, doesn't get ring-fenced, doesn't go to dealing with issues in that industry. It just goes to the fiscus in the big mattress, and it gets shared across all other government responsibilities. I'm not also buying necessarily the argument that taxation would actually go to solving the issue of problematic gambling in South Africa.
No, not at all. I mean, I agree with your sentiments and concur 100%. I think what's important for your listeners to also understand is that for 20 years now, there's been a public-private sector partnership between the operators themselves through the gambling boards, sometimes with license condition implementation, that all operators pay 0.1% of their GGR to the South African Responsible Gambling Foundation, and those payments are made on a monthly basis. And that's what actually funds the South African Responsible Gambling Foundation, who are the de facto institution that deals with problem gamblers and offers counseling and treatment and helplines. And all of the advertising and stuff carries that warning. Whether on radio or TV or on billboards, you see at the bottom it's compulsory in law that they all have that responsible gambling message with the toll-free helpline where people can call in. And so that public-private partnership has been successful over the last 20 years, and the operators want to be responsible and contribute responsibly to that program.
But Sean, the statistics are shocking. 4 billion rand spent a day by South Africans. Up to 50% of lower income households go a month go to gambling. 1 in 3 gamblers in South Africa considered problem gamblers. People are spending money which should be going to pay for school fees and clothing their children, going to gambling and participating in this industry. What does the industry then propose when it comes to curbing problematic gambling? People who should be spending money on their children, spending their money on betting.
Look, it's a difficult one, and I mean, as an industry, we do want to be responsible, and we advocate for responsible gambling, and not to gamble things that money that you can't afford to lose. I mean, it's an entertainment form, and it should be treated that way. In regards to various of the online operators, there's a number of things that they implement on their websites. Loss limits, cooling off periods where you can self-exclude yourself, not necessarily through the legislative process, which is then compulsory to have be implemented by an operator. But you can self-exclude for a period of time and take a break. Some of the bigger operators are using AI and algorithms to provide messaging to somebody who's been playing for 2 hours at 2 a.m. in the morning, suggesting that they take a break and suggesting that they come back tomorrow. So there's small, subtle things that operators can do, but ultimately the industry can't control behavior. When it comes to the grants issue and the use of grants for gambling purposes, because people are trying to gamble their way out of poverty, that's not something we support either. I've made some suggestions to the Department of Social Development regarding interfacing their social grants database, with the checks and balances that operators have to go through when they do age verification and FICA verification and stuff like that. And also NSFAS as well, because we'd like to put some first-level guardrails in the industry and preclude those people from becoming account customers. As I say, we can't control behavior, but we can work towards at least putting some first-level guardrails in to try and assist the process of making it one step harder for those people who should be focused on utilizing their grants for what they are paid for.
Sean Coleman, CEO of the SA Bookmakers Association.